Good morning, campers, and welcome to Geezer Viz. My name is Mike, and in this episode, I'm going to be talking about RV memberships, at least the ones that I know something about.
Geezer Viz.
So think about what kind of RVing you want to do. There's different ways to RV. There isn't a right answer. It's all just dependent on what you like. So we're in a resort, and that comes with all sorts of amenities. So resort RVing is one type of RVing. There are also other private parks that are not part of a membership that you can RV in. Some of those have nice amenities, some maybe not so much, kind of like a KOA. So there's KOA camping. They have a standard for their RV sites that they mostly follow. I've been in some pretty ugly ones, but they usually have a pretty good standard that they go by. And then there's boondocking. So boondocking means that you have absolutely no hookups at all. So you're completely self-contained. We boondocked for a week once in Quartzsite, and we did just fine. We ran our generator for the electricity when we needed it. We have a pretty good battery bank, so that kept us going. Our holding tanks held up nicely. Both our freshwater and our wastewater tanks all held up really nicely for that week. We could have done, maybe 10, 11 days that way without having to replenish the water or empty any tanks. And then there's state parks, and then there's national parks. And a lot of people like that type of RV. And so you really have to think about what it is that you're going to enjoy. Are you going to full-time? Are you going to part-time? Are you going to be a weekend warrior? And all of those types of things come into play when you start planning the type of RVing you like. Or, like me, maybe you just like it all, and you're willing to do all of that kind of stuff. The problem with like national parks and state parks for me is that they book up early and they're very hard to get into, and a number of them will not support a 45-foot rig. I mean, we did get into a national park at Grand Canyon in our rig, no problems there. We did do the Harris Beach State Park in Oregon. That worked fine. I tried to get into Harris Beach State Park again on this trip, and it was booked solid. And I was booking 3 months in advance. And I think I needed to book more like 6 to 8 to 12 months in advance to get into those parks. Okay, let's see if we can make some sense out of these memberships. I've made myself some notes here, so I'll be glancing down at them every now and then. So let's start off with the simplest type of membership there is. There's the KOA, I think they call it a rewards card. For $33 per year, you can get this rewards card, and that'll save you 10% at their parks. And that's not, really a great savings when you consider that their average nightly rate at a KOA is between $40 to $80 a night. Now, they do have over 500 locations, so there's typically a location close to where you want to be. And they also have a certain standard that they go by. Typically nicer kept up areas, nicer bathrooms, A lot of them have swimming pools or by a lake or by a river, and generally they keep up to that standard. Not saying all of them, but most of them do. They are privately owned, so they do fluctuate in the amenities that they offer and the prices that they have. I said $40 to $80 average. I've been to places cheaper than that. I've been to places more expensive than that, but that's the average. So if you figure $33 a year, take a $50 average nightly rate, you're going to save $5 a night. So 6-7 nights it's going to take for you to recover your $33. Basically, the 10% pays the sales tax. And then there's Good Sam. And Good Sam has over 2,100 parks. So pales in comparison to KOA's 500. But the Good Sam parks do not have a standard that they go by. There is a book out there that rates the parks, and I've seen some pretty horrible places. And their rates average between $25 a night and $80 a night. So you can see at that $25 a night, you're not getting a whole lot of amenities. But the Good Sam card is also 10% off, and that card costs $29 per year. So a little bit less than KOA's $33 per year, but still, you're only getting 10% off with that. Now there's also something called Passport America. Passport America is $44 per year, or I believe you can buy a lifetime membership for $350. What that's going to give you is 50% off participating parks. There's over 1,800 parks to choose from, but the deal with them is there are a ton of restrictions. It's everything from not available on weekends and holidays, so really only good through Monday through Thursday kind of thing. It's not available during peak season, just restriction after restriction after restriction. It's not all parks. Some honor the rate all the time, but a lot of them don't. So for this one, you have to plan your trip carefully in order to take advantage of this, but it is a 50% savings. So 1,000 Trails. Right now, a 1,000 Trails yearly membership costs $500, but that's for one zone. 1,000 Trails divides the country up into 5 different zones, and most of their parks follow the outline of the country, from the east coast to the west coast, and a few parks down in the south. They may have a few parks in the Midwest, but that's pretty much it. You're not going to find anything in like Colorado or, in the Michigan or, kind of those areas. But you will find Maine down to Florida, Washington down to California, some in Texas, some in Arizona. But they divide the country up into those 5 zones. So your $500 is going to get you one zone. So if you're only going to stay in one zone camping, that's pretty good. So again, we'll use our $50 per night average. 10 nights, you break even with that. However, if you want to travel outside of your zone and stay in other zones, you can add those zones for $65. And that's as of today in 2021. So the overall cost to add the entire nation is like almost $800, $760, I believe. So that would get you the whole nation. But again, if you're going to do a lot of traveling, that's not a bad deal. And with 1,000 Trails, you don't have to pay anything extra at the park, I believe. I'm not sure if they have resort fees they add in or not. I don't own 1,000 Trails, so I'm not sure. But anyway, it's advertised as free once you get to those parks, so that's all you pay. Good deal for some people as long as you're going to travel around the nation that way in those outside the border states like that. More the middle of the country, if that's the kind of traveling you're going to do, then 1,000 Trails isn't for you. The reason 1,000 Trails isn't for me is because a lot of those parks are older parks and they do not support 45-foot rigs. There are some that do, but there's a lot that don't. And so I can't do 1,000 Trails. Now, 1,000 Trails also has restrictions, and I'm not 100% sure on all these rules, so be sure to do your own research on it. But from what I've read is that you can be 14 days in one park Then you have to be out of the system for 7 days before you can come back in for another 14 days. So 2 weeks in, 1 week out. So during that 1 week, you're going to have to find something else to do before you can go back into a Thousand Trails park. However, also part of Thousand Trails is something called Encore. That's going to cost an extra $214 per year. And that's added on to your Thousand Trails. Encore parks are kind of like the Passport America parks, where whatever you get is restricted. So it's restricted on the number of nights, it's restricted on the discount, maybe not holidays, maybe not peak season. Well, actually what I found through Encore is peak season is usually 30% off the rate, and non-peak season, it's $15 a night. But however many days you can stay, that's up to the park to decide, since they're all independently owned. So $500 a year for the Thousand Trails, $214 to add on the Encore piece of that. And then there's the park that I belong to, which is called your home park, and that's through K&M. And they're only in Washington. They only have 8 parks. I've been to some of the parks. One was a total rat hole. The others were okay. It's in Washington State. I'm not going to camp in Washington State. And that was expensive because you had to pay your membership fee, and then you have to pay your annual dues. So the annual dues are, I think, right around $300 a year for me. They may be more for other people who have joined after I've joined. The rates keep going up. I'm not sure how they figure it out. It's probably up to your negotiation skills to depend on exactly how much you're going to pay for an initiation fee and how much you're going to pay for your annual dues. With K&M, I can stay in their parks for just the cost of the resort fee, and sometimes they charge for Wi-Fi. I'm not sure if they charge for 50 amp or not, but they have little charges. It's still not free. It's still $10 a night. So it's $10 a night plus whatever add-ons they have, which could bring it usually up to around $15 a night. But I'm not going to stay in the K&M. The reason I joined that was so I could also join RPI, Resort Parks International. You cannot join Resort Parks International without having a home park. So you have to buy into one of these membership programs first, then you can add on RPI. Now, RPI costs an extra couple $100 per year. But with that, I get access to about 400 parks. Not all of them are RPI parks. Some of them are the Encore parks. And I only pay the $10 per night. So where I was at that KOA, it was $10 a night. But then they added $5 a night for electricity, 50 amp, and $5 a night resort fee. And here I am in Pahrump, Nevada. It's $10 a night, but they add $4.50 for electricity. And that's because you're going to use your air conditioner. It's hot here. So then there's Coast to Coast. Now I could have joined Coast to Coast with my K&M. Coast to Coast is $90 per year, and you have to have a home park. So you have to have one of those home memberships. And that also gets you the same $10 per site. They have partner parks that you can go into. And you could stay at those at some percent off their regular rate. And again, they are all individually owned, so you never know what that percent is. I mean, they have a book and it's on the web and you can figure all this stuff out. It's just planning that you have to do. And they've got about 200 parks that you can go to. For that $10, I'm sure there's still other fees that they can add on to that, like the 50 amp and the resort fees. Although Coast to Coast, they say that's it. It's just the $10 per night. But the other parks is a percent off. And then they have this weird point system that I don't understand. I've not really checked into it that much, but it's a point system that you can use at other parks. Now I should say also with my RPI, I have an opportunity to get discounts on cruises, on hotels around the world, on villas, and those kinds of things. Those are usually last minute reservations, so you have to be willing to wait maybe 2 weeks before you want to travel to be able to book those kinds of things. So if you're retired, it allows a lot of flexibility. If you are still working and you need to plan months and months ahead of time then that part doesn't work. I've never used that part of the program because I've been able to find good discounts on my own. I'm gonna have to check into it though. Now that I'm retired, it may make more sense to try to find some of these last minute deals. And there are a whole bunch more of membership type programs that I don't know a lot about. There's Campgrounds of Distinction, I think it's called. There's the Colorado River something or other. There is Harvest Hosts, where you pay a fee to stay. I think of it as wineries, that these wineries allow you to come park your rig on their property. And typically they expect you to come in their little store where they sell stuff and buy their wines. But you pay a fee, and then your Harvest Host location is free, but it's boondocking. And from the ones I've seen, I can't do that because my rig is too heavy. I can't just go park in somebody's field. Otherwise, I would never get out of there. A 40,000 pound rig isn't going to sit too nice on somebody's grassy field. So I don't do that one. So I've talked about KOA, Good Sam, Passport America, 1,000 Trails, Encore, K&M, RPI, Coast to Coast. The Colorado River one, I think, is a lot like K&M. They have, I think, 10 parks in the Southern California, Arizona area. You could buy into that program and then also add on either your Coast to Coast or your RPI onto that. So this is not cheap. It is cheaper than if you're just going out and paying the daily rate, as long as you use it. That is the key. You have to use it. Now, I haven't talked a lot about state parks and national parks. Now, with state and national parks, there are passes that you can get. There's passes for disabled people, there's passes for senior citizens, there's passes for military, and a lot of those passes will give you access to the park. But they don't necessarily give you a discount on your RV rate. Some of them do. Some of them give you a little bit of a discount on your camping. But each state park is different in how much they're going to charge. So as an example, I looked at Oregon, and their nightly rate in Oregon National Parks is $42 a night. Then I looked at Texas, and their rates range from about $35 to $60. So it's dependent on the park. And then I looked at California, and they're all over the place. I think the highest I saw in California was like $170 a night. And, that's for some premium park where you're going to have really nice views and amenities. But they're probably they're in the high side. They're in that $50, $60, $70 per night range. When I went to the Grand Canyon National Park, I believe we paid about $70 a night there. But then I looked at Yellowstone, and you can boondock in Yellowstone for $35 a night. So they're just kind of all over the place. If you're going to be in one state for a long time, it may make sense to buy one of their annual passes, just to get that little bit of a discount that you can get. Also, when I was looking at these parks, I tried to find availability. In California, there was no availability in any park that I looked at. And of course, I didn't look at them all, but I looked at a good 15, 20 of them, and there was no availability into the future at all. Nothing to book. And then I looked at some of the other parks, and they were recommending at least a 6-month reservation window. So you do have to really plan those trips, and then plan them far enough in advance that you'll be able to get the site that you want. And then on top of that, you pay a booking fee. So it's right around probably about $6 to $8 for a one-time booking fee for that reservation. And then, of course, if you have to change your plans, then they keep the booking fee and refund a portion of your money, depending on how close it is to the day you're supposed to arrive. So lots of planning involved, lots of reviewing of their rules to determine which is the best way to go. Like I said before, I don't fit in a lot of those parks. However, there's usually a park close by that I do fit in, that I can get a good rate in, and I can go visit the national parks and the state parks anytime I want. I can just drive into them. So I don't necessarily have to stay in the parks. When I was younger, staying in state parks and national parks would have been one of the more important things that I wanted to do. Now that I'm older, I like the hookups, and it's not as important to me. So at the beginning of this video, I asked you to think about what kind of RVing do you want to do? For me, driving my RV is not the adventure. Where I park my RV is not the adventure, but it's what I do once I'm outside of my RV. State and national parks are fine, but I can park outside the parks and then drive into them, or even drive onto BLM land like I am right now with Walker Lake right here behind me, enjoying the lake down here. However, where I'm staying is about 10 minutes down the road. So it took me 10 minutes to drive here. Now it would be cool to park right here, and there is a campsite I could park up here, but I'd be boondocking, and I'd rather have full hookups. So it's your own personal preference. There's no right answer. Memberships are great, again, as long as you use them. Well, my name is Mike. This is Geezer Viz. I hope you subscribe and give me a thumbs up if you like the video, and I'll talk to you really soon.
Geezer Viz.